Hey everybody, you are here for another episode of the Freedom Cast where we learn how to be, get, and remain free. I am your host, Violet Calandra, and on this episode, this extra special episode, we have an amazing guest. She is an author, she's a CEO. Come on, she's a motivational speaker, she's a queen, she's a child of God, she's a miracle. I
Amen.
can go on and on and on, but we have Different here with us, and she wrote an amazing book, a thought-provoking book. We're going to talk about that. It is about things that we need to talk about in our community. On this podcast, we talk about the things that other people don't want to talk about. So she fits right into that. Hello, Different, and welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Queen Shalandra. Thank you, girl. Thank you so much for having me. Hey to everybody out there listening and watching. So happy to be here on your show. Thank you for having me. Yes, my name is Different, spelled Difernt. Yeah, just delving right into it. If I have your blessing, I'm from Houston. Um, from Fifth Ward, but I've due to my upbringing, I've moved all over Houston. So any part of the city of Houston, you name it, I've been there. But because of that, um, that the reason was due to my upbringing. Like I said, coming up by the age of 11, I was already homeless and on the street. Me and my family, and that stayed that way for about 3 years. And so we literally lived from pillow to post, basically, parks, shelters, cars, bus stops. We stayed at strangers' house, relatives. Um, Even one time stayed in a crack house, if you will, and just stayed like that for 3 years. And it wasn't until the time I was age of 14, I was secretly placed in foster care by a relative. And so for 6 months, my family, they didn't know where I was. And for about like I said, the first 6 months, I tried my best to come home. However, I found out that in the state of Texas, if you age out of foster care, they will pay for your full ride to college. And so right then and there, a light bulb went out of my head, and I decided to use my street smarts to elevate my book smarts. And it was just God speaking to me. And so when my family did find out, that I was in CPS and they tried to get me back, I told them no, I was going to stay and duke it out here, or in CPS for the next 4 years so that I can have that full ride to college paid for, because I saw no other way. I'm just a, black girl from, the poor hood, if you will. And so I saw no other way of me going to college had it not been that way. So that was just God's plan. And so I did that, and I graduated from Elsick High School off the Southwest Side and ended up going to Sam Houston State University. So shout out to the Bearcats, anybody out there in Huntsville, Texas. Eat 'em up, cats. We out here. Yeah, and then being there for 4 years, that was just a life changing experience. God just blessed me with so much and so many opportunities within that experience. I started my own student organization titled Pay It Forward, in which we dedicated, ourselves to educating, volunteering, and mentoring kids that were in foster care, as well as just the youth in general. And that's where my motivational side came in, or where it was sparked, if you will. We would go to different high schools and speaking with, the juniors and seniors about the importance of education, and I would just share my story and my testimony with them. And that's where that book was planted for me, as far as the motivational speaking side came, as well as I was also blessed with the opportunity to travel abroad my senior year to Kim Young University, which was in South Korea. And so I stayed there within 4 months, and just that was another, blessing and experience within itself. Just opened my mind up to a whole new world. Me, a poor black girl from the hood, traveling out all over the world, and within that opportunity, I got to travel to 8 other different countries. And so coming back, here I am finishing up, my college, and now I'm graduating with my degree in international business. I also have 2 minors in economics and business communication. Later on, I obtained my master's degree in entrepreneurship. I'm also a Texas real estate agent, not to mention now I'm a new CEO of my new business, Third Eye Entertainment. And so
Come
all
on,
praise and honor and glory goes to God, because even though my
Different.
story started in tragedy, it's going to end in triumph because I claimed it in His name.
Yes, it's gonna end in triumph. The main thing about it is, I think it's so amazing to hear these stories of triumph, to hear these stories of overcoming, because we all need that. Like, we've all been in a tough spot, in the pandemic. Even if everyone's life was perfect, or some people's life were perfect before the pandemic, after the
Mhm.
pandemic, everybody's lives were jacked up. We all need that kind of boost of encouragement, right? So to hear where you were and where you came from, I mean, it is so encouraging. And I just want to give a little backstory to everybody who's listening. So Different and I, we don't know each other outside of this space, right? And I've had guests on the podcast who I've known for years, and my best friends outside of the virtual world. But Different and I are a part of a Black podcasting group on Facebook,
Mhm.
and they ask us sometimes to post what our podcast is about, and so I did, and Different contacted me, and she was like, hey, I really, I think that I would be good for your podcast. She told me what she was doing. She told me about her book. She told me about what it was about, and I'm like, you know what, yeah, actually, it would. So we tried to connect one time, and I already told her that I was gonna say this, so we tried to
Yeah,
connect
you
one
did.
time.
When you say it, it's just oh.
Okay.
But go
It's
ahead.
okay. It's a part of our journey. So we tried to
Mhm.
connect one time, and it just didn't work. It just, something happened, life happens, it's fine. So we rescheduled, and then we were gonna connect the second time, and it did not work out. It just wasn't happening. Now, for anybody who knows me, Stephanie Calandra Jones, you know that I'm about my business, and I'm not saying that Different isn't. I'm just saying that when certain things happen, I'm like, you know what, that's okay. We can kind of move on. Maybe it wasn't meant for her to be on the podcast. We could have our own thoughts, we could have our own dreams and aspirations, but
Mhm.
sometimes that's not how God plans it. But when I tell you that I heard God say, you know what, try one more time. No, try, get her on here and try one more time. I'm like, huh? Wait, like, get her on here one more time. Try one more time. Try one more time. When we finally got together and were able to meet and talk, and she shared her story, I said, my God, this is exactly why he was telling me to have her on, because her story is amazing. What she wrote about is amazing. Her experiences are amazing. So I am honored to have you on here. I think this is such a great example of divine kingdom connections, because we're in that time where we are being connected by God to people that will help us to grow, that will help us to get the word out about the freedom for mental wellness, the freedom from our past. Come on, shout out to the seekers, and freedom from our
Amen.
trauma, freedom from things that we go through. Like, this is a freedom book. So please tell us about your book, and tell us about the premise of it, what it's about, what sparked it, because that background story that you gave was
Oh,
amazing.
definitely. So if you say what sparked it, then I got to take you back to my background story, and just going back to where God's goodness, He prepares you for greatness. Where you think you good and you fine, that's when He tell you, nope, it's time to let me upgrade you. And so sometimes it get uncomfortable in that situation, and this where it gets a little deeper. What we talked about a little earlier previously. So again, I say that all my accomplishments, traveled all over the world, been able to see just about 50 countries, and got all these notches under my belt. However, with all of those, successes and blessings, um, inside I was a wreck. On the outside I was cool, I was calm, collected. Everybody, I looked happy. I was very joyous, but on the inside I was dying. I was dealing with a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of adult trauma, a lot of mistakes that I made in my past was still haunting me. Um, Even though I was still being blessed with a lot of opportunities, I had people coming my way, hearing my story like you are, and that wanted to help me. However, just coming up in that background and that upbringing, that I did. I know it's going to sound crazy to some people out there listening, but for me, chaos was normal. That was just the environment I grew up in. And so when I was taken out of that environment at the age of 14 and placed into foster care, into CPS, I was actually placed in pretty good homes, like two-story houses, and very well-to-do, neighborhoods, and nice school districts. Very nice. And for me, it was just too good to be true. And so what I would do, I was that, I've always been an alpha male, so I was that one that decides, when it's time to sink this ship. I'm the captain of this ship. And so what I got used to doing was sabotaging relationships and pushing people away, becoming very unlikable and unlovable. And that from the age of 14, mind you, all the way through high school, college, even, and into my adulthood, those type of behaviors and traits, those negative, behaviors and traits, transferred over into my adulthood to where, I was squandering those opportunities. And it wasn't until it was a really big opportunity. I had a meeting with somebody who's very well connected in Houston, and that just really could open up doors for me. But dealing with those demons in my head telling me, you're not worthy, they're not going to like you, you too ghetto, you're from the hood, you talk country, those things just really, just put a damper on my heart, and it caused me to sabotage that that opportunity, and to where I purposely showed up late to the meeting, and it left a sour taste in that person's mouth. And this has been about 7, 8 years ago, but to this day, I regret that opportunity. I mean, I regret what I did. But it wasn't until the issues like that to the where it started to force me to see, I needed to face the ugly truth, and the facts that, I needed to go and fix my issues. Whatever I went through in my past, my childhood trauma, it wasn't my fault. It was out of my control, but somehow, some way it's my problem, and I have to fix it. And that's just how life goes sometimes. That's just the ugly truth that, we all don't want to face but need to hear. Whatever we go through in life, the trials and tribulations, whether it be our fault or whether it wasn't our fault, somehow, some way it ends up being our problem, and it's on us to fix. And so for me, Kalandra, what I had to do was get real with myself, get along with God and talk with Him, and just tell Him, break down and fall down on my knees and just tell Him, Lord, I can't take it no more. Every night, I'm losing sleep. I'm reliving the past, and I'm stuck. I can't move on. I look happy on the outside, but I'm dying on the inside. Um, when the death of, like Robin Williams and Anthony Bourdain happened, I thought to myself, wow, that's me. If I don't get it together, I'm going to be like them. People that, that look happy on the outside, and you think, Anthony Bourdain, him traveling all over the world and getting to do what he did, and look at how it ended for him, with him taking his own life. And so that broke my heart, and it forced me to face that truth that I needed to go fix my issue. So what I did was dismiss that notion that, a lot of the people in our community, the Black community, feel that, Black people don't do therapy. And so I said, no, no, ma'am, no, sir. I'm gonna go do some therapy and get help and fix my issues and talk with somebody about what's going on and what's bothering me. And so when I did that, at first when I started doing, I wasn't serious about it. I was inconsistent, so, but when I got serious with it and really, found the person that the therapist that was perfect for me, I stuck with it, and listened to what the therapist said, and it changed my life for the better. And going on a little over 2 years now, I've been in therapy consistently, consecutively, and I'm so proud of myself for doing that, and not ashamed to admit that or say that to anybody that's listening, that I'm a person that's right now that's taking therapy session, and that's talking about my issues, dealing with depression and anxiety and staying stuck in the past. Those were things that were holding me down and that I had to go and fix. A lot of the issues in my childhood, it wasn't my fault. I'm a child. I had no control. There's nothing that I can do about it. It wasn't my fault, but somehow, some way, it's my problem to deal with. I'm the one that's stuck late at night, dealing and thinking with this, trying to move on, but can't. I take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. That's just what it was for me, coming out of, college, and, as an adult, young adult, just trying to find my place in this world. And so talking with my therapist and just working with him, and him talking with me and giving me advice and tools and resources. One of the encouragements and the advice that he given me was to dive back into something I was passionate about in the past. And when I was coming up in the CPS, I used to write a lot of poetry and read books. And so I started journaling again and writing, and looking into writing affirmations, and started reading spiritual awakening books, things of that nature. And one day, again, this is around 2020 now, the pandemic happens. We're stuck in a house. Um, and then, boom, May 25th, 2020 happens, and the death of George Floyd occurs. And that's the day, the world had to watch, for 8 minutes and 49 seconds, on Facebook Live video of a man dying. And so with George being from the same place I'm from, Houston, but he was from Fifth. I'm from Fifth Ward, but he's from Third Ward. We're right down the street from each other, so this was a perfect opportunity. I felt to go get involved and have my voice heard, and be a part of the protest, and even have my nephew involved because I want him to know and be aware of what's going on. However, when that day came, I couldn't do it because I wanted my voice. I wanted it to be heard longer just in that moment of time. I wanted it to be heard long after I'm gone. So after his funeral and everything, I just like I said, late at night, got along with God and just talking with him, praying for the spirit of discernment, asking him what it is that I can do to to contribute and have my voice heard. And also long ago, I prayed to be the one in my family to break the generational curse and create generational wealth. And so this is also tying into that manifestation coming ahead as well. And then also just with the notion that I'm tired of people turning a blind eye and claiming that racism doesn't, exist or isn't alive. And if it is alive, the only reason why is because we're keeping it alive because we keep talking about it. And so with that, just talking with him, this is what I came up with. What if a controversial paradigm shift? And so day by day, just writing in my journal little by little. Go ahead. Go
Let
ahead.
me
I'm sorry.
interject really quick. I mean, because you brought up some like amazing points. One, you're speaking the language of the podcast by talking about mental health. Like we are mental health and wellness advocates. Like ding ding
Yes,
ding.
we could let's just talk about that for a second. Hold on, we could definitely
Yeah,
dedicate a little second for that. Yes,
especially in our
anybody let's
community. Especially in our
anybody
community.
out there listening, look at me, hear me now. Anybody out there going through depression, anxiety, having suicidal thoughts, any emotional, distress, whatever you're going through, it's okay to not be okay, but
Yes.
just don't sit there and not be okay. Go get help. Go fix it. Whatever you went through in life, especially in your childhood, if you have a lot of childhood trauma you went through, please know that whatever you went through, it was not your fault and it was out of your control. But somehow, some way, as an adult, it's now your problem to deal with and it's on you to fix. And even if you cause the problems on yourself in your adulthood, if you have some adulthood trauma that you stuck on and you can't move on from, it's on you to fix, whether if it was your fault or not. And so it's okay not to be okay, but just don't sit there and not be okay. And if you know that you have a problem and you need to fix it and you don't want to fix it, then it's not only your problem, but it is your fault then. And that's just the ugly truth that we all have
Woo!
to face within ourselves. And so once we do that, once we get real within ourselves and we understand and hear the word and accept the words from God, a lot of the time when we pray and talk and ask God for the spirit of discernment and ask him what should we do with this and that, and he tells us and we don't like it and we don't want to accept it, then those for those who are spiritually immature, but you have to be mature and understand, things
Come
don't always
on.
work out the way you plan. And when it doesn't, just know that when God is telling you no, it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. That's what I had to learn, coming up. And so
Come
when
on.
I got along and got real with myself and just accepted the fact that this was on me now, as an adult, I was still sabotaging. I was doing what I was doing as a kid, sabotaging those relationships and pushing people away. But as an adult, I can't do what I did as a child, and so it's on me to go fix those issues and find better ways to deal with, what I'm dealing with and how I feel, and present better actions towards what the world puts out for me. And
Yeah.
so because I'm a real person, I'm really big on karma and doing right by people and just
Yeah.
putting out good karma because I believe what you put out comes back to you. And so
Yeah.
I try to
You
just
reap
do right
what you
by people
suffer.
when it
For
comes to
sure.
that. And so when I got real with myself, that mental bondage was released. I didn't feel no more shame, no more pain. I didn't care who knew. I didn't care who talked against me because what I was doing made me feel better inside. It felt good to even just write it out on paper how I felt, even if it's not talking with the therapist. Find a family member, a friend. Pick up a hobby. I picked up 7 hobbies and loved it and turned it into a business. That's what happened for me, getting my mental health in check. This is what happened when I got real within myself. Yes, I was one of those, in the past who was in that line of having, thoughts of ending it all and thinking, no, this is it for me. It's never going to get better. Please trust and believe you are not alone out there in feeling that you are. Know that it's somebody else who feels the same way and that it will be okay. It's not over until he says it's over. It's not up to you to take control of what says, I'm no longer here. God put you here for a reason. You have a purpose in life. And until he calls you home, you serve that purpose to a fault. And whenever he calls you home, just be prepared to hear those words, job well done. But you got to stay and fight the good fight. You got to
Yeah.
trust and believe that, no matter what life throws at you, he's not going to give you no more than you can bear. This is what got me through, Kalandra. It was just that affirmation that it's always somebody out there who has it a lot worse than you, 10 times worse than you. So be grateful for what you have and what you're going through, because it could be worse, and just give him the praise and honor and glory through it all, whether it's the good times or the bad times. Continue to praise him and pray and ask for, that protection, and that healing and that clarity, and it will come to you over time. Again, change doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. So if you're thinking, oh, I prayed this prayer and God didn't give it to me, well, don't worry. You have to be, again, spiritually mature. You have to understand that, God doesn't work when you want him to work. When you snap your fingers, he's not your servant. We are his servant. He's not ours.
Yeah.
So he's just showing, we're here to show you how he works, and so that's what one thing I want before I leave this earth. I want my life to be an example of how God, I'm the personification of what he says when he could take you from the back and place you to the front, just like that. You just have faith of a mustard seed. When you just
Man,
call on his name and believe in his plan, he
you
can
preach the
deliver you out
sermon.
of any type of situation that
You
even if you
preaching.
brought the troubles on yourself. He can, when you call on him and truly mean it within your heart, and have that, the genuine sincerity, he comes to you. I've been there. I've been to the dark sides to where, I could have been dead in jail. There's been so many situations where I brought the troubles on myself, and God still showed me mercy and grace and got me out of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's going back to that mental health, and it was all because of that for me. It was just due to what I've been through and what I was bringing on myself. But once I got real within myself, I got away from them chains, closer and closer. I moved towards the light. And I just want to share, some quick facts out there for those who are listening, and those who are interested in the topic about, suicide. A lot of times, our community, we don't talk about these issues, but for those who understand the
I mean,
message and what we're trying to
Different.
bring here,
You're
I'm
right.
gonna give you these facts so you can share with others, so they will know the importance of why it is, why we need to talk about it in our community, because we need our brothers and sisters in here. They already taken us out on their own, so don't do the job for them. We need to be here. We
Wait
have
a minute.
purpose,
Wait
and
a minute.
so
Yeah. Now you spit in it because people are already trying to take us out, right? Bars, because
I told you, girl, I come with
come on,
it.
people are already trying to take us out. They're already
hmm
doing that on their own. We don't need to try to help them. And I want to rewind
Yeah,
it a little bit. I want to rewind it a little bit because you mentioned Robin Williams and Anthony Bourdain, both
my
who committed
favorite actors, and I loved him.
suicide.
Yeah,
Both who committed suicide, and it
I was
shows us
so hurt.
something. Me too. It shows that I was more affected by Robin than Anthony, but I was affected by Anthony as well because both
hmm
are celebrities. They have money, they have fame, they have fortune, they had what we think is the good life. However, they were unhappy inside. So
hmm
you can if you're not happy with yourself when you're just by yourself, there's an issue there, and this is how we're coming to this. Listen, we're getting to the content of the book, so y'all don't worry. We're
Oh
getting to
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't worry about that. We gonna get.
Thank you. This is the road to getting there. There would be no book without all this backstory. And I think it's amazing
Exactly. So
to hear, you know what I mean? So we're advocating for mental wellness and health, and we're advocating for all this stuff. And it's really important that we take this in, especially for our community where we don't talk about this stuff. Who talks about suicide? This is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. We have to talk about this stuff because too many of us are going out. And it's not just a white people thing anymore. So it's not, oh, white people do that. No, no, no. We
no,
Different is about to share the stats. We are taking ourselves out. Not we're not talking about gun violence, we're not talking about drugs or overdoses. We're talking about people who are committing suicide because they have
suicide.
lost hope, because they cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel. So this is why we have to do things like this. This is why we have to say stuff like this and have it out there so that that person who is so close and right on the edge, just about to take their life, just about to end it all, can hear a spark of hope. And all you need is that one little spark. Like with a campfire, you need that one little spark and
A little
everything else
flicker.
will blow up. A little flicker. That's right. So, I mean, and Different really talked about this. She was like, before we came on live, she's like, I want to integrate talking about, suicide prevention and suicide awareness. I'm like, go ahead. This is something that we need to
Yes.
talk about because we talk about the things that sometimes we don't. Sometimes we don't mention it because we're too afraid, or our families have told us to
Yes,
keep it
sis.
quiet, and it's killing us. It's
Or they
killing
get
us
mad at you.
inside.
Or they get
They
mad
get
at
mad
you
at
for feeling
you.
how you feel.
My
Yep.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the issue that I had. I didn't want to share how I felt because I know coming up in I don't know how it is up in Chi-Town. I know it's tough up there, but down here in the South, it's gritty. You got to suck it up and just hold it in. And so even for it's an issue in itself within our black men in our community with the black men, but in black people in general, we're just taught to hold it in. Like I said, coming up in that background for me with chaos is normal, I was also brought up with that notion that what goes on in this house stays in this house. So
So
you
toxic.
you was come up with that issue, like and this didn't happen to me, but I'm pretty sure people out there listening, it if you were touched by somebody in your family, even if you mustered up the courage to go and tell, there was a high possibility that nothing would get done about it, or that even you would get turned around and get whooped for it, like it was your fault. I've heard stories like that. Where a girl finally mustered up the courage to tell what was going on to her and what a family member was doing. She actually got a whooping for telling. And so it's like that in some families, and that's sad. And it's like, it needs to be brought to light in our community. I don't care how gritty and how much it hurts, it needs to be said. It's hurting me right now. My voice is, cracking up, but it needs to be said.
It has to be said.
It's okay. It's okay again not to be okay, but just don't sit there and not be okay. If you feeling suicidal, even if you're not feeling suicidal, just depressed or sad and get down at times. Some days you have good days, some days you have bad days. It be like that sometimes. But talk about it. It's okay. Or even if you don't want to talk about it to nobody, find something within yourself. This is also what I had to do. I had to find hobbies, praying and meditating, doing yoga, writing and journaling, and just every little thing. Find what works best for you. There are resources, online resources, even with finding a therapist. Some people use that excuse as, oh, well, therapists cost so much, it's too much money, I can't afford it. True enough, it does cost to receive their services. However, don't let money be the issue why you don't get your mental health in check. There are other free resources out there, such as the suicide prevention lifeline, or the hotline, excuse me. You can call them and talk to them, even if you're not suicidal, having suicidal thoughts. You can just talk to them and just tell people how you feel. They don't know you, you don't know them. And so don't let that be your excuse as well. There are plenty of resources and tools out there. And then thank you so much, London, for sharing that. If you guys are having thoughts, here's the number, to call 1-800-273-8255. Um, Also, just if those who need, resources and where to go, people to talk to, check your local listings, go online, do your own homework and research. Don't just leave it in other people's hands. Again, you take control over your ship. You're the captain of your ship. You decide, which way and direction you're going to steer. Is it going to go down, sinking, or swim, or are you going to steer straight ahead to your final destination where God has planned for you to be? Not where you want it to end or where it goes, but where He has it for you. And I promise you, He has it. His end plan is going to be a bigger and better plan that you ever thought of. I used to pray for things and they have came ahead, but God blessed me with so much what I asked for and then some. That's just what happened for me when I gave it to God. But I also, again, with the numbers, it's just 1-800-273-8255. And then the website, again, we have the suicide prevention lifeline.org. I'm sure Kalandra will share that as well. Also, if you, those for mental health, if you need resources on where to go in your local city or town, you can go to, excuse me, let me make sure I have this right. Mentalhealthishealth.us. And I know my girl's going to share that with you guys as well. So, no worries, she's gonna share that with you as well. But those are resources you guys can check out if you know are having suicidal thoughts or if you're feeling depressed, going through anxieties. Don't worry, it's okay to not be okay, but just don't sit there and not be okay. You are not alone in what you're going through. Trust me, when you put yourself out there, you will find that there's people who feel how you feel, and then that's where you begin to build your village, your tribe. You find people who are like-minded like you and who feel like how you feel, and that's also a source and a tool that you can use to pull yourself out the depth. And as far as with the stats goes, let me just share this quickly with you guys. 12 million. Well, this is from CDC. Via 2019, the circa 2019, 12 million people have thought about or contemplated suicide. 3.5 million have planned suicide, and 1.4 million have attempted suicide. Every 11 minutes, one person dies in the U.S. from suicide, and suicide is the 10th leading death in the U.S., as well as from those from the ages from 10 to 34. Suicide is the second rate death that causes death. The second for those of the ages of 10 to 34. And that number right there just shocks me. Hearing a 10-year-old, taking their lives because they're feeling bullied and hopeless. That's just heartbreaking to me. That pushes me more and compels me more to talk about these issues because I'm so tired of hearing these babies taking their own lives when they have so much to live for. And so, and it's not their fault that they're doing it. They're doing what they see others do. They learning from older people what's going on. So it's on us to break this curse, this generational curse. It's on us to bring it to light and what needs to be said. What we can do. The first step we have to do is have these conversations, take accountability and acknowledgement. That these are the issues that brings on these thoughts of mental health. You know that causes the strain on the mental health and ultimately leads to suicide. And so again, for anybody out there who are feeling those thoughts and having those you know, pits and downfalls. Trust me, it's okay not to be okay, but just don't sit there and not be okay. Use me as an example of what happens when you just muster up the courage and take that one little itsy bitsy baby step. It gets better over time. So you just have to give it time and trust in yourself and believe in the Lord. And so just know personally, I'll be praying for you guys. You matter to me, even though I don't know you and you don't know me. You matter, and so stay here with us because we need you.
Yes,
so that's all I'm going
yes.
to say on that.
Woo!
And so we're going to close out with that, and then also with the mental health. Just do what you have to do to keep that in check. And when you get your heart right and your mind right, That's when your third eye is open, and then you can take off and do anything you set your mind to. And so that's we're gonna leave it with on that, and we're gonna,
Absolutely. I
if you
think
don't mind.
no, I don't mind. I think that's so amazing. You know what I mean? Because it's hard for us to fight social justice. It's hard for us to fight anything in society that's going against our community. It's hard to have those fights if we are not okay mentally. It's hard to write
Mhm.
that book. It's hard to get that podcast out. It's hard to do that TED talk. It's hard to launch what we need to launch. It's hard to do our business, our God given business, our God given purpose, unless we have
Mhm.
our mental health together, unless we have that community of folks that we are plugged into that says, look, okay, you're not okay. Let's help you be okay. Let's stick with you and stay with you until you are okay. I mean, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to do what we have to do if we're not okay. So you couldn't have
Mhm.
even written this book. You couldn't be doing this social awareness and social justice and systemic racism talks. You couldn't even be doing this unless you had
I would have
everything
been going
together.
nowhere fast.
Nowhere fast. Nowhere fast. And how many of us are like that and doing that? I mean, this is the reason why you're on here to give hope and to help people get out of that funk, get out of that funk
Mhm.
that we're sometimes in. Sometimes we're in that level of darkness and it feels good to us. But it's time to propel
Complacency.
ourselves.
That's what that's called, and this is what a lot of
Complacency.
us are plagued with. complacency. But I had to rid myself of that. I'm not perfect. I want you guys to know I'm not perfect. I'm a work in progress. I do have a dark side to me. I try not to let it show, but what you see is what you get. This is different. And so I trust and believe, even though I'm sharing with you guys all the good, I still have my good days and bad days. I'm
Sure.
going through depression as we speak. Just this year alone, I've lost 4 people. I do apologize. Give me 1 second.
Wow.
Gotta make sure.
Yeah. So
Got the wrong.
Yeah, so Different was talking about that, she had suffered some loss and some issues that happened. But she was still able to pump out a book, and today is actually the day that her book gets released. So it's like it's amazing to even do that. Today is the first day that her book was released, and able to be here for the public. And just what she's saying, she's going through some bouts of depression right now. She's going through some issues and some stuff. Her life is not perfect, but she keeps going. So that's the question that I'll ask that will push us into the book topic. What kept you going? By all rights, you should not be here. By all rights, you were put unknowingly in foster care.
God.
Right, God, right. So what inside now? What inside of you? Okay, so we have God. God is your sustenance and your source.
I've always just been that fighter person. I've always had that fighting spirit. I'm an alpha female. What the hell?
Different have a few technical difficulties. I think she was saying she's always been an alpha female, always been someone who can stick it out and do it, and just grab onto different things. And I feel like that's the point of this. Whether Different comes back or not, I don't know what's going on with her phone, but this is technology. Whether she comes back or not, I think we've heard what we need to propel us forward. I really, really, really want to talk about seasonal depression and what that looks like and how it affects us and how it stops us from going on. So right around this time, we'll notice that as we get less sun, the depression or the sadness or that kind of like dark funk that we're in will rise up, right? We'll be trying to figure out what's happening. We'll be trying to figure out, why do I feel sad around the end of September all the way until like January? Why do I feel this way? Why am I feeling so sad? That is what we call seasonal depression. The lack of vitamin D, the lack of sunlight makes us get sad. It makes us feel a certain way. So it is important that we hear those who have overcome, who have done this, who have made it, who have pushed up out of the mud. That's what I told Different. I said, you came up out of the mud. We need to hear these stories of encouragement because it'll spark encouragement in us. And it'll spark us to say, okay, if she did it, then I too can do it. If she made it, then I can make it as well. Let me bring Different back in the stream. But that's the goal. The goal is to bombard ourselves with these stories of triumph, with these stories of overcoming, so that when we're going through, when we're struggling, it's like, oh, okay, Different did it, so I can too. It's just a spark. It's just a small spark to make a big flame. Let me bring Different back. Hey now.
I'm back. I'm so sorry.
Okay. No, okay.
I'm so sorry about that. I know you thinking, this girl here. Ooh, child.
No, you know what? The way technology is set up,
you're so patient.
Especially in this, no, girl, listen, the way technology is set up in this pandemic, I'm like, I don't even have time to stress over it. I've been on Zoom calls where the audio has gone out, the camera has malfunctioned, people are muted but not muted, the camera's on, it shouldn't be. So I'm just like, whatever's happening, we're just going with the flow. That's my self-care. I just go with the flow. I just keep it moving. But while we're waiting for you to come back, I was saying that we hear these stories of triumph and overcoming because we're in this place of seasonal depression. Around this time, we have less sunlight. We'll start to feel a certain way. And people can hear this story of overcoming from someone who came. You didn't come from much, but you have much to give. And now you have much, and God has blessed you for that. So please just get into that social awareness, that systemic racism, that content of the book, and what that means to you and what you want to do with that.
Okay, yeah. So, what if a controversial paradigm shift? Before I go any further, I must state that the book does include a disclaimer. It's intended for a mature audience only. It does contain sensitive content. So, if you can't take this type of heat, don't bother coming to this kitchen. The book was written to encourage and inform and encourage constant and consistent thought-provoking conversations about injustice and systemic racism in America, as well as it's done through graphic but provocative provocative illustrations. Um, it details on controversial deaths and events that have occurred within America, excuse me, in America, but within the African American community. And the way that I have set it up, I have four main categorized paradigms: historical, political, precedent, and hypothetical. And so within these four main paradigms, I have sub paradigms that ask the question, in contrast to respect to its paradigm. So if in historical paradigm, I asked a question such as, what if in 1619 Africans started dealing in illegal slave trading where they kidnapped millions of white Englishmen and women from their homeland and brought them on slave ships to America. And then you'll see the illustrations of, white folks in shackles being whipped with being beaten with chains. Excuse me, not being beaten with chains, but with whips and things that we went through. And so it's basically just, a race role reversal, just, a paradigm shift, just asking the question, what if this happened to you instead of us? What if this happened to your ancestors? And what if this was still happening to you? And if these type of actions are not okay, you are upset about that, but yet, you have, it's justified when it happens to a black person, then that's how you know racism is still alive. That's also, what I'm trying to bring to light, that conversation, this book, the way I have set up, it will, it does, have the gritty and grimy, so it's going to make you uncomfortable. But at the end of it, if you can muster through, if you can be, mature enough to get the, my main message, in hypothetical paradigm shift, which talks about basically unity and compassion for one another, for mankind, because as we stated, we're all going through something, whether it be our finances, our mental health, physically, with the relationships, we're all going through something. So why not be kind to one another, to a person that's walking by on the streets, instead of passing judgment just because of the way they look? And so I ask these questions, and I have it set up to where if the question doesn't get you, the illustration will. And yes, this book it has the word controversial in it because that's the point. It's talking about things, the controversial things that Black people have gone through in America, but yet it's downplayed and swept under the rug as if it's no big deal. Okay, well then if it's not, then how about this? What if it happened to your people and your kind? What if white folks would be shrinked up and lynched back in the day by black folks? And so I have those type of illustrations, to demonstrate, that point. And yes, it's gonna be a lot of people out there
Woo!
who don't like what I'm bringing to the table, but that's fine, that's cool. I'm like this, one thing I've learned from number 45 is that you go where you celebrate it, not where you tolerate it. And so with this guy, even after his 4 years in office, he still had roughly about 25% of the U.S. population, still condoning, what he was
Yes,
doing. And
yes,
so that right there alone showed me that no matter what you stand for, what you believe in, how you act, what you say on TV, there's always going to be somebody out there who's going to condone, what you're doing, no matter what. So therefore, you go where you celebrate it, not where you tolerate it. And me, being that businesswoman that I am, I did my test market analysis and research and find, exactly where my target audience is, and what makes them up. And so for me, I'm gonna go where I'm celebrated and not where I'm tolerated, and focus on those who are interested in the topic and who want to hear what I have to say. And so again, the book is out right now. It's on pre-sale at my website, differenceworld.net. So you guys out there can go and check it out and order it for the next couple of weeks, as well as we have a book launch going on coming up soon. Also, we sell in association with the books that's coming up other merchandise such as coffee mugs, uh, but I had apparel, uh, posters, you name it. We got it. You just have to go look on our website. Sorry, I can't think of it all right now. But yeah, so just go to my website, differenceworld.net, and get the info for that, as well as our other social media handles, such as our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube and Twitter page. Um, Also, what else? The book trailer is also available so that in case if you guys want to get a taster before you order the book, just to see exactly what it is, the book trailer is available on our website and other social media platforms as well.
Yeah, so everybody, I just posted the link to the book in the Facebook chat, and then for those watching on YouTube or those watching a little later, I did post a banner up there, so you can go to Difference World and see all that, and all of her social media handles are right up there. She's amazing. She's awesome. Just thinking about the paradigm shift. I mean, I don't know if any other group of people would be able to handle what our people went through. I'm not sure if anyone would still be around. We are a tough and resilient people. So to think about it like that, I'm not saying not many people do.
Mhm.
I don't know anybody else who does. It's not like millions of people are just thinking about, well, what if this
I
happened?
don't know either, but we're going to find out.
Now, and if we weren't thinking about it before, we're surely going to be thinking about it now. Yes, the thought has crossed our mind maybe a little bit, right? Like, okay, what if this happened to white people? But to really explore it like this, like you do in the book, I mean, it's something phenomenal. So that's the name of the book right here on the screen. What if a controversial paradigm shift?
Thank
And
you.
it's literally like, okay, what if this happened to another race of people, specifically white people? All the things that we had to deal with. What if this happened to them? What if they were still dealing with systemic racism and all this stuff with the voting rights? What if they still had to deal with this? This is what the book is about. The link is right there. Please check it out. She has a whole bunch of different other items on her website. And we are truly in the time of divine connections. Different is in Houston.
Hello.
Yep, we can hear you. Different, but we can't see you though. Different is in Houston, and I am up in Boston, but we're still able to connect. We're still able to get together and say, okay, you have something, I have something, and we'll talk about the same thing. Let's broadcast this out. So it's an amazing book, and she gave the disclaimer. There are some graphic things in there, but it brings and drives the point home. So I think it's really important for them to come in there and for them to be in there. I think that's something that we really have to look at. This is just our time. This is our time to really focus on how we make sure that we are mentally okay, because there's a lot of stuff going on. Us as a people, we've dealt with so many pandemics at once. I mean, we had to do the pandemic um, that was biological, that was like scientific. We also had to do the racist pandemic when our young men were getting killed, our older men were getting killed, our people were getting killed. So we have really been going through. I think it's so imperative and important for us to just keep going and pushing, and to hear these stories of growth, to hear these stories of overcoming, these stories of freedom, where we can just be together and understanding that it's like, okay, I am not going through this alone. It makes it all better when we know that we're not going through this alone. It's so, so, so important. So I don't know what happened with Difference camera. I don't know what happened with the sound, with the audio, but I think we got enough out. And for those of us who just jumped on, hey, sissy, we can watch the replay. Different told us about her story. She told us about her life. She told us about what she went through and how she overcame. That's the main thing here. This is the theme we're in. We're overcoming. So we're overcoming what? So I talked about seasonal depression. We're overcoming that seasonal depression. We're overcoming not feeling like we're enough. We're overcoming our trauma, overcoming what people have placed on us, the words they've spoken against us. We are overcoming. Look, Different was in foster care. Now she has her master's degree. She's an author. She's a CEO of her own company. What can't we do? She had God pushing her, God directing her, God guiding her. So that's the main key component. We need God. We need God to make sure that we are together. This is Different calling me right now. We we need God to make sure that we're good. We need God to make sure that we have everything that we need when we're dealing with our mental wellness. It can be very difficult to accept that we can't do it on our own. It can be very difficult to accept that we're not here alone. So it's important that we focus on that. So I think we're gonna end. I don't know where Different is, but it's fine. Things happen. We got the main things out. We got enough content. We got enough encouragement out so that no matter what's going on, we can be encouraged. We can be encouraged. We can be encouraged. Her story is dynamic. Her book is dynamic. What she's talking about, we need to be talking about this stuff: social justice, social awareness, and combating and fighting against that systemic racism. It's something serious, and it's something that we have got to talk about. And that's what we do on this podcast. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all those who will listen a little later on. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. We have all got to stick together in this. We are connected in the kingdom. God connected Different and I. There's no way around it. There's no reason that we should be connected except God. So that's an admonishment. If you feel like you should be connected to someone, connect with them. Connect with them, connect with them, connect with them. If you feel you should be doing something, if you feel the leading and the pushing of God, do it and connect, because you never know who God wants to set you up with. You never know who God wants to put you with to further advance the kingdom. Nothing else matters at this time unless we further advance the kingdom, unless we further advance the kingdom. So God bless you. Have an amazing rest of your day. Whenever you listen to this, night, morning, have an amazing rest of your week. God bless you. Stay connected and remain free. This is our time of freedom. This is our time of encouragement and togetherness. Okay, we will catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much to Difernt for coming on. All of her links are right in the chat box. Please check out her book. Please check out her social media handles, because she is dynamic. She has a great testimony. She has a great story. And I think it's something worth hearing. Okay, because we're all connected in the kingdom. Bye, y'all.